Greetings dear viewers and welcome back to the review program. In this episode we are going to talk about the 5+1 format summits that have gained popularity in recent couple of years. The 5+1 format has emerged as a key platform for addressing the complex challenges facing Central Asia, particularly in terms of security, economic resilience, and energy cooperation. Over the last 2 or 3 years, this framework has gained increased importance. But before we dive deeper into our analysis, let's define 5+1 format. The 5+1 format is a diplomatic framework that brings together 5 Central Asian countries: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, with one external power to exchange in high-level dialogue and cooperation. The format, established in 2015, has gained importance over the last few years, driven by the growing geopolitical tensions, security concerns, and the need for regional economic development. In 2023 summit held in the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, US President Joe Biden personally met with the Central Asian leaders for the first time. This meeting represented a significant elevation of the format, reflecting the growing importance of Central Asia in US foreign policy. During the summit, the leaders discussed strengthening counterterrorism cooperation, regional connectivity, and humanitarian assistance, with the Biden committing to increase security funding for the region. A notable outcome from the recent 2023 summit was the focus on the Middle Corridor, a trade route connecting Central Asia to Europe through the Caspian Sea. The US expressed strong support for developing this corridor, with the seen a critical path for boosting regional trade and economic resilience in the face of global disruptions. Recently, Kazakhstan hosted a summit of such format. The 5 Central Asian countries and Germany gathered in Kazakh capital. You may see the details of the event in the following report.
Particular attention was given to partnerships in investment and technology, critical raw materials, green energy, transport and logistics connections, and addressing climate change together with implementation of educational and cultural programs. In his speech, President highlighted Germany's support for the democratic reforms and socioeconomic transformations in Central Asian countries, as well as for regional cooperation and integration. The head of state proposed several new initiatives and suggestions aimed at further advancing comprehensive cooperation between Central Asia and Germany. Firstly, he mentioned the establishment of strategic regional partnership between Central Asia and Germany, proposing the adoption of a long-term cooperation development concept covering priority areas. He suggested establishing a Central Asia-Germany Forum of Analytical Centers. To develop this document, the first meeting will be held next year in Khiva. Uzbekistan expressed interest in attracting Germany's technical assistance to implement a program for creating digital maps of identified deposits of critical minerals and rare metals in the region. Cooperation in green energy was underscored as an important area. The president proposed initiating an energy dialogue between Central Asian countries and Germany, involving ministries of energy, major corporations, operators, research organizations, and industry specialists. Interest was expressed in preparing a comprehensive program to enhance expertise in the low-carbon economy with the involvement of German technical assistance. Joint efforts to combat climate change were considered a top priority. In this regard, President Mirziyoyev suggested expanding joint educational programs and scientific exchanges on environmental and climate studies under the framework of Central Asian University. He also proposed cooperation programs focused on implementing Germany's water management technologies, modernizing irrigation systems, preserving biodiversity, and training environmental specialists. Additionally, the president pointed out underdeveloped transport communications in land and air transportation transportation as major obstacle. He called on Germany to help engage European institutions in developing alternative transport corridors linking Central Asia with Europe. President Mirziyoyev suggested holding a ministerial conference in 2025 to explore ways to increase the transit potential of such routes. The president also emphasized the importance of cultural and humanitarian cooperation, proposing the adoption of a joint cultural events plan, hosting Central Asian art and film days in major German cities, and fostering museum collaborations. He highlighted that security in Central Asia is closely tied to the developments in Afghanistan. Therefore, Uzbekistan expressed its readiness in cooperation with Germany and other European nations to implement joint projects aimed at involving Afghanistan in regional cooperation and training specialists, including women, at the educational center in Termez.
Why is such 5+1 format becoming a trend? Why does Central Asia attract the great powers? What can we expect in regards to the regional integration? We got answers to these questions from the expert political sciences Farhod Talipov. Good evening, Mr. Talipov. Thank you so much for joining to our studio once again. Very happy to have you.
Good evening.
So we are going to discuss the 5+1 format today. It's gaining the popularity for the recent couple of years. Why is that so? Let's discuss this from the perspective of both sides. Why is it important for Central Asia and why is it important for other countries?
Right. Last 2-3 years, we are observing interesting phenomenon. The so-called C5+1 formats are proliferating. I mean, the number of C5+ formats is increasing, and even last year, exactly 1 year ago, on the 78th summit of the General Assembly of the United Nations, our president mentioned this phenomenon, saying that no less than 10 formats of this kind, C5+1, already exist in the world. And since then, as I said, 1 year passed since then. Since then, even more C5+1s appeared, at least 2 I can mention, both from Europe, and the last one being German's version C5+1. And there is even a kind of a rumor that even Great Britain is pondering such an opportunity, such a perspective of C5+1. By one, we mean Britain, and so on and so on. So there are many C5+1s. It's really a very unique phenomenon for Central Asia, I guess. If you compare Central Asia to other regions of the world, be it Asia, Southeast Asia, or Middle East, or Africa, or elsewhere, you can hardly find such similar, let's say, platforms. If, for instance, 10 in Southeast Asia, 10+1. Can we imagine C10+1 or somewhere else, or let's say Arabic countries of Persian Gulf, also 5. Is there C5+1 there, similar to our C5+1? I think we are, in this sense, quite unique. There are several reasons for such a phenomenon, that so many C5+1s appeared and function now in the international system. One of these reasons probably is the unique location of Central Asia, which is, between Russia to the north, China to the south, Caucasus across Caspian Sea, of course, to the west, and the turbulent region of South Asia. Since ancient time, we know, and now more and more scholars studying Central Asia just point out to this fact that in the history, deep history, Central Asia was at the very core of the Great Silk Road, ancient Great Silk Road. And now, when Central Asia was colonized by Russia or the part of the Soviet Union later, this status, let's say, so attractive and romantic status of Central Asia to be Silk Road was forgotten. And the world forgot our region. And after independence only, it was again, its status of center, its status of international crossroad was also remembered, refreshed, and restored. And one of the reasons could be that Central Asia itself is attractive in terms of, numerous natural resources which they possess. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and other Central Asian countries also are rich in natural resources which they can export. That's why connecting Central Asia to the rest of the world and their access to external markets is also very important, and probably this is also one of the major reasons why so many countries now organize their own form of engagement with Central Asia. And it's, you know, scholars, we who use these formula C5+1, United States or China or others, do not formulate or articulate this platform in such a specific way. Like it's C5+1. For the sake of simplicity, we use such a formulation. They themselves just invite, I mean, for instance, American President Biden invite our presidents, 5 Central Asian presidents, for summit and institutionalize this negotiation for a platform in some way. And recently, for instance, German Chancellor, also Olaf Scholz, last year he invited 5 Central Asian states to Germany, and this time, recently, he also visited Central Asia. He also doesn't say C5+1. So it's like a formula of Germany's engagement with Central Asia. So that's why C5+1 is rather a symbolical denomination of these, methods of communication and engagements with great and mid-ranking powers.
You just have mentioned a recent visit of Chancellor to Uzbekistan, and then the President of Uzbekistan, traveled to Astana to participate in the summit. Why is it so important for Germany to cooperate with Central Asia? What is so attractive about it? Maybe there are some drawbacks as well.
Indeed, Germany occupies a very special place in overall Europe's policy towards Central Asia. I think it must be mentioned that yet in 2007, it was Germany that initiated drafting the European Central Asian strategy, Europe's Central Asia strategy. For the first time, Europe, designed its own strategy. European Union designed its own strategy towards Central Asia, and it was initiated by Germany at that time. And Germany since then was very active in terms of, implementation of European strategy towards Central Asia. 2019, this strategy was renewed in some articles, in some points, and Germany was also active in redrafting that strategy as well. So in this sense, we may say, it's my hypothesis, that Germany, besides its own policy towards Central Asia, plays the role of a kind of leader or representative of European Union when it comes to Europe's policy or strategy in Central Asia. Because since then, as I said, Germany itself was very active in this direction. So Olaf Scholz's visit to Central Asia and Germany's C5+1 has a twofold character. One is, indeed, it's just Germany's formula, Germany's policy, and at the same time, Germany somehow realizes European Union's policy in Central Asia as a leader of European Union in this respect. Well, so this is the twofold role. When, to be more concrete, as Olaf Scholz himself articulated this time, a few days ago, in Astana when he came, one of the major reasons of growing interest of Europe and in particular Germany in Central Asia is natural resources, especially energy resources, and in the future maybe even green energy resources, renewable energy. This is one, and especially rare earth elements, which like lithium and other chemical elements, of which Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are so rich. And Germany is very much interested in such elements because of they are very important for modern technology. And that's why Germany, and I'm absolutely sure not only Germany, very much interested in having access to such unique and strategic natural resources. He articulated this issue as well. And third, I guess maybe it should be even the first, not sure. Third, Olaf Scholz, it was my guess also before the visit, but Olaf Scholz also made it clear that revitalization and activation of Germany's relationships with Europe with Central Asia is stipulated by the turbulent geopolitical context, which means in particular the ongoing war of Russia against Ukraine. And until recently, Europe and of course Germany, first of all, was to a great extent dependent on the gas supply from Russia, and now this supply was cut, and Germany is cut off from any sources, any trade and cooperation with Russia, and that's why Germany is looking for alternative sources and alternative corridors for getting these resources, energy resources, circumventing Russian territory, for instance, from Central Asia through Caucasus into Europe. In particular, Olaf Scholz also made it clear that Kazakhstan is on the third place among major energy supplies of Germany. So it's third. It means Central Asia and Kazakhstan in particular indeed plays a great role in development of Europe, and in particular Germany, in particular in terms of getting energy resources. But anyway, I think to continue this third point, third reason, I think the overall, besides energy or natural resources issue, I think now Germany, side by side with other Western countries, we call it collective West, are doing their best to reorient former Soviet republics away from Russia. They don't make a secret of this. I don't mean by getting them away from Russia geographically. You cannot just shift them to another place of the world, but in terms of dependence.
So you believe this active attraction of Central Asia for Germany in particular is due to the sanctions that are going around?
I think so, yes. He made a hint on this during the visit. I mean, Olaf Scholz. Also, he mentioned Russia, he mentioned war in Ukraine, although there was a little bit delicate situation during the visit when President of Kazakhstan said that Russia is invincible in military sense, and that's why it's time to come to negotiations and stop the war, with which Olaf Scholz disagree, saying that Russia, it's all depends on Russia, because Russia initiated this war, started this war, and everything will depend on this. If Russia stops the war, no sanctions, everything was okay, and the negotiations will start immediately. So it was kind of a slight disagreement between Olaf Scholz and Tokayev. It was a little bit delicate situation. Anyway, this also reflects this tense climate, tense situation. And Olaf Scholz also made it clear that overall visit here and C5+1 meeting with Germany also has such a hidden maybe or explicit agenda of doing something in order to balance Russia.
What are the pros and cons of the C5+1 format?
Indeed, there are some pros and contras. For example, if the number one in this formula, +1, be it China or Russia or United States, if they exaggerate or prioritize their geopolitical interests in Central Asia, this is, I think, minus or contra, because geopolitics is itself a very challenging environment, a challenging process, because it implies that great powers are engaged in a mutual rivalry and competition with each other, trying to exert influence on Central Asia vis-a-vis each other, great powers. And that's why it is challenging for us. Probably it deserves mentioning right now that some time ago, a couple of years ago, our President Mirziyoyev, in one of his statements, said very openly and very officially that he meant himself, I'm feeling, I paraphrase with my own words, I feel constant pressure from great powers regarding the situation in Ukraine, and they demand to take a side in such a conflict, either Ukraine or Russia. So it's very delicate, very difficult choice for me, he said. And in the end, he said, I will only pursue the national interests of my country, something like this. So this statement itself is illustrative of how geopolitical situation is so challenging for us, for independence of Uzbekistan and other Central Asian countries. So that's why probably when we mean one, the figure one, probably geopolitics is the major minus. If these ones, US or Russia or Europe or whoever, really prioritize other issues, not geopolitical interests, then this minus will be minor, and other items or agenda will be more positive. Regarding C5, this is another question. This side of the formula C5, it's about us, Central Asia. I think plus of this formula, pro, is that these C5 plus ones platforms provide unique opportunity for Central Asians to work together, because C5 plus one itself is reflective of recognition in the world of a single region. I sometimes joke that the world already recognized the single region, Central Asia, but ours, 5 Central Asian states and presidents of Central Asia, are so slow in this respect. They do not speed up the process of integration in Central Asia when the world already recognized this region. So that's why C5 plus 1 is one of several unique platforms where 5 Central Asian states can join their efforts, act together vis-a-vis these ones, great powers. How efficiently they do this is an open question. When they meet with America, for instance, when they meet with Russian president, when they meet with the Chinese chairman and others, whether they act together, jointly, go to the C5 plus 1 summit by working out in advance their common platform, common position, it's an open question. Anyway, big pro and big plus of C5 plus 1 is an opportunity for Central Asians to go there together, to act as a region, not just autonomous, let's say, separate individual Central Asian country.
You just have mentioned about solutions. In our previous programs, we have talked with you about different summits, and you have always mentioned that there is a shortage in practical implementation. Do this kind of summits of this format give those practical solutions and implementations, in your view?
It's very hard question, I would even say. Without exaggeration, it's a hard question. Because theoretically, let's say, or on the paper, when after each summit, C5 plus 1 summit, they adopt joint statement or declaration, joint declaration or something similar, on the paper, everything looks nice. They articulate, they declare very nice ideas, promising, long-term perspective, so everything positive. But when it comes to reality, the real life, how this individual C5 plus 1, let's say C5 plus United States, C5 plus Russia, C5 plus China, will really manifest itself as an efficient, productive platform, again, is on one hand a difficult question, difficult to see how they will implement all these promises, and on the other side, they have they are not free from geopolitics, as I said above. Let me be concrete. C5 plus US, take this formula. In this format, in joint statements and declarations, every time we read the following point, for example, that the United States supports independence, territorial integrity, and sovereignty of Central Asian states against different threats. So every time when I meet my American colleagues in conferences and different other places, I ask them, okay, this is the great promise that the United States will help to defend Central Asian sovereignty and territorial integrity. Imagine, we don't want this, but anyway, imagine this moment X in the future when Central Asian states, Central Asian region is facing a threat from whatever source, from whatever direction, let's say X. Source from X, threat from X. How, in accordance with this statement of C5 plus 1 about defense or protecting sovereignty and so on Central Asia, the United States will act. Or, for instance, very recently, this year, there was another C5+1. Central Asian countries were invited by Arabic group of Arab countries of Persian Gulf. It was also C5. Sometimes I say it was like C5 plus C5. But these 5 Arab countries were like one. Imagine they also they adopted a declaration. It's a big document. If you read the text of that declaration, you will see, among other things, one interesting point, that they will, again I paraphrase of course, they will work towards realizing the different projects of connectivity between Persian Gulf and Central Asia. But Persian Gulf, Arab states of Persian Gulf, this organization doesn't include Iran, which is not Arab country. So in between Central Asia and this group of countries, there is Iran. How will they implement connectivity without Iran or Iran's engagement, for me, becomes vague. Declarations, joint statements are so nice, so attractive. How in the real life, on the practical level, they will implement, difficult to say. Let's see.
Now, as we have talked about C5+1 format, let's move on to Central Asia itself. Looking at all of this integration in the region, how do you vision its future? Maybe there are some challenges, maybe there are better outcomes in the future.
Yes, indeed. Since 1991, 5 Central Asian countries have been engaged in this integration process. And I studied this process for more than 30 years in my academic work. And, you know, until recently, I was very active and very, loud optimist of this integration process. I wrote numerous articles in different journals and made lectures and even teach Central Asia course for my students in universities. But since recently, I'm becoming more critical, if not to say skeptical, about regional integration. Because, look, 33 years passed. It's like 1/3 of the century. 1/3 of a century. It's quite a long time. However, Central Asian states speak about integration as such less and less. To be concrete again, take the documents which were adopted in the last consultative meeting, 6th consultative meeting, which took place recently, 1 month ago, in Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan. They adopted a special document with ambitious name. Look how it sounds. The name of the document sounds like this. The conception of cooperation of Central Asia till 2040. Look, the title of document itself is about cooperation, not integration. Okay, maybe they overlooked the term integration on the title. Let's take a text and make a content analysis of the text, and you will be surprised that even this, it's about 9-page document. When you read the text, they didn't mention the word integration at all. So my question is, until 2040, there will be no integration at all? Only cooperation? We do cooperate with other countries of the world also. With China, it's also cooperation. With America, it's also cooperation. With Japan, with all countries of the world. We shouldn't mix, we shouldn't confuse terminology. Cooperation is different thing, integration is different thing. Region-wide, in Central Asia, we have to talk about integration. And integration was proclaimed officially right after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 5 days, in 1991. Since then, the process slows down. Until 2005, 2006, the institutionalized form of integration was very good. And now it is just consultative meeting. It's not yet institutionalized. We have already 6 meetings with the name consultative meeting. It means they come, they meet together, consult about certain things Central Asia is facing, and then go home. It's not yet an institution. They do not adopt any obligatory documents, treaties, agreements, just joint statements, declarations, all this strange conception which doesn't mention integration at all. That's why I'm getting more and more critical about this. So by summarizing briefly, I should say integration is not a bold process. It slows down, although on the practical level they do implement interesting projects. Connectivity, transport, trade is increasing indeed in scale, but in terms of politics, political integration, they are extremely cautious and do not do something big, something strong in terms of institutionalization of Central Asia. So that's why it is now an open and actual question. When, how soon, and whether Central Asian states will speed up the process of real political integration and will not limit themselves to just simple, modest cooperation.
I see. Thank you so much for such productive
All right.
conversation.
Thank you. A pleasure.
So here our analysis comes to an end. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next episodes.